Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of what we are calling Silvery Barbs, which we're going to be doing as somewhat of a competition show to find out which brother is best.
Yep, that's the tagline of this show. Me and Austin are going to be competing in multiple different genres, and today Silvery Barbs is about draft picks.
Yeah,
he had to
explain this concept to me, but today we're going to be drafting Jedi to see whose team is best, and I think I've got a pretty good killer lineup.
We're building out a roster of Jedi. Now, you can determine what you consider, like, what you want from a Jedi, whether it be power, whether it be like the closeness that they are to the Jedi way, like whatever factor you want. You're just building a roster of your top 5 Jedi. We're going to be going draft picks.
I've got it right here.
Back to back to back. Because
I used a book.
Because you are new to the draft, because you're new to the draft idea, you are going to have the first pick.
All right.
And then we'll go in succession.
Well, I will happily
fourth.
take first pick. Because I think that my first pick is almost unarguable. I went for the Jedi, specifically the Jedi Grand Master, Yoda himself. This guy taught Jedi for 800 years. He was Grand Master of the Jedi Order for like 500 or 600 of those years.
Yeah.
He basically was the Jedi Order from the period of the High Republic all the way up to the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And arguably through the Dark Ages as well. Considering that there were no real Jedi Orders at that time, but he was still around and kicking. Enough all the way to teach Luke Skywalker, even. And that's not even the main reason. I mean, that is a main reason why to support Yoda, but the main reason is because he also managed to become one with the Celestial Force in such a way that he was able to project his own living consciousness through the Force for like 30 years after he was dead.
Yeah.
Because we see him show up in Last Jedi, totally intact Force Ghost. He's able
Rise
to be...
Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. You're right. No.
Yeah.
No, Last Jedi. He shows up. He strikes the tree with lightning.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
He's confusing me.
Yeah,
but no, he shows up in Last Jedi, and he's perfectly complete Force Ghost. No degradation at all. The dude has joined the Celestial Force perfectly. And that's got to be like one of the top tier Jedi things that you can even do, realistically. If you can become a good Force Ghost, that is top tier Jedi ability.
Yeah, that's true.
So I got to go with Yoda. I mean, come on. And the dude was able to beat Lord Sidious and Dark Tyrannus, right? Like, he didn't win the fight against Lord Sidious, but he held his own for a really long time, and I'm going to give him points for that. You know?
Okay. Well, with your number one pick being Yoda, Yoda wasn't my number one pick. My number one pick, since the beginning of time and forever, will always be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi is my Jedi. He's what I define a Jedi as. He is, like, the best Jedi, in my opinion, for a number of reasons. And if you quantified being able to turn into a Force Ghost very high, well, guess who else can turn into a Force Ghost?
Yeah.
My boy Obi-Wan. Guess who did it first? That was Qui-Gon, but then Obi-Wan.
Qui-Gon didn't quite make it, so Obi-Wan was really the first
technically
Force Ghost
in canon,
the new era.
In canon, Qui-Gon does turn into a full ghost, because in Kenobi he shows up as a Force Ghost.
Sure, but that's only for Obi-Wan.
Yes, for Obi-Wan. But Obi-Wan, he can turn into a Force Ghost, but the real reason why Obi-Wan is the GOAT of all Jedis, right, the greatest of all time, is that he was the guy who the Jedi Council called when they wanted something to actually be done. So it's like, hey, Obi-Wan, go over there, fix this problem. Hey, Obi-Wan, go back over here, do this thing. Hey, Obi-Wan, take your Padawan, go over there. Keep going. They just sent Obi-Wan around to solve basically all their problems. He's the one who took down General Grievous. He's basically the guy who ended the war because of that. And it ended up adding up for some other bad stuff because some other things happened. But Obi-Wan as a Jedi is like the best you can be. He's very supportive. He's very mindful. He has a great relationship with his men, the clones. Like, everything about Obi-Wan is absolutely phenomenal, and that's why he's number one for me.
Okay, I'm not going to, like, diss on Obi-Wan.
You can't.
I do think Yoda's still better, but I'm not going to diss on Obi-Wan, that's for sure. But interestingly enough, Obi-Wan, not my number 2 pick. My number 2 pick was actually Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan's master, and that is because he was the first one to, well, in the modern era of Jedi anyway, he was the first one to discover the Celestial and the Living Force, and to be able to figure out how to integrate his consciousness in it. And Qui-Gon Jinn was the soul of the Jedi Order, too. Like, he was one of the few guys who hadn't fallen into the dogma, he hadn't gotten so arrogant and detached from the galaxy that he didn't realize what it was that they were trying to protect in the first place.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon was really the last best hope for the Jedi Order. And I mean, even when we get into Duel of Fates,
yes,
right? The best battle in, at least the first movie. Only battle in the first movie, that's fine. When we get into Duel of Fates, that whole fight is about the soul of the Jedi Order. It's about the ability of the galaxy to move forward. If Qui-Gon wins, he trains Anakin Skywalker using his methodology, his ways, and Anakin becomes a pure Jedi and a force for good.
I was going to say, though,
he loses...
The Duel of the Fates is the fate of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, it is. It's
which is,
the
in
fate
turn,
of Anakin
the fate
Skywalker.
of the galaxy.
Yeah, the fate of the galaxy. The soul of the Jedi Order is dependent on Qui-Gon Jinn winning that fight. He loses, but he loses to Darth Maul.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's not an embarrassing loss. He didn't lose to Savage. You know, he lost to Darth Maul, the dude who was like, that guy is impossible to kill.
Die. Yeah.
he only loses to Obi-Wan when it's like the world has already ended like 4 times, and he's just running on steam.
He loses to Obi-Wan basically every time. Obi-Wan.
He does.
Obi-Wan's in his head for free 24/7.
He lives there. He's got a penthouse apartment.
Yeah, he does.
But no, I mean, Qui-Gon Jinn, he was very, very important as Jedi go, and he wasn't exactly slouching on skills either. Like, the dude was a master of Form 4. Yeah. It turns out Form 4 easily countered by rapid swings of Sith technique. But, you know, still, he did a good job, and I gotta give him points, and he's important.
It's true. Qui-Gon's very important. Fortunately for me, you didn't tag my number 2. Like, you're number 1 and number 2. They aren't my number 1 and number 2.
Okay.
My number 2, and I feel very strongly about this, is Plo Koon. Plo Koon is my number 2. He always will be my number 2. He is my second favorite Jedi, and he has been since the beginning of time. I have loved this guy since I was a kid. And to put it into words, the reason I love Plo Koon so much is that he is the Jedi that brings a level of calmness, and he brings a level of mental aspect to the Jedi Council. He is very resourceful. He's the rock of the Jedi Council. Plo Koon is that guy that you want to be in the room if you want to feel confident in what you are doing, because Plo Koon will help you get to that point no matter what. Plo Koon is a very peaceful, very mindful Jedi, and everything about him screams Jedi to me. Like, the Jedi to me are, protectors. They're the peace, the mind, the soul of the galaxy, the people who make sure everybody has a chance.
Or at least they're supposed to be.
Not
really by the time
can fail at that. But Plo Koon and Obi-Wan, those two guys do it perfectly. They do their job perfectly. In my opinion, Qui-Gon he's very good. He's very strict about I turn to the light because it's there, that kind of ideology. He's very strict about that kind of stuff. But at everything else, I don't know if he was fully present of mind, and it might have come from the fact that he was trained by Dooku, who was kind of pulling away.
And Qui-Gon was kind of the hippie Jedi.
It's true, but Obi-Wan and Plo Koon, they're right on the path of what a Jedi should be, and that's why I love them. That's why they're my number 1 and number 2.
I'll give Plo Koon real good points. He was my number 3, entirely because of his work with the Wolfpack. Good job.
Yes, and he cares a lot about his clones.
Yes, he's one of the Jedi that does. There aren't that many. And then, so that was my number 3, and then my number 4 was Obi-Wan, for all the reasons that were already stated.
Pluck, pluck.
But that means we're down to my number 5 for my actual third slot. And this one, probably a few people are already wondering why he hasn't shown up yet. This guy is literally the chosen one, war hero of the Clone Wars, the guy who actually got everything done, Anakin Skywalker. Yeah. I gotta go with Anakin Skywalker, not Darth Vader.
Yeah. There is a distinction between the two characters. Anakin
if we include
himself,
that, I can't really put him on the list. But Anakin before the fall, I think
hero of the Republic.
He is literally the chosen one. Do I need to explain that decision beyond chosen one?
I'm sure Star Wars Theory would be upset that we didn't pick him at number 1.
Yeah, probably, but he's here, right? He's here now. This dude was the guy who went out with his 501st Legion, which, by the way, is only a Legion. It's not a Corps. It's not that big. And he solved every problem in the Outer Rim pretty much by himself,
with Obi-Wan.
Yeah, with Obi-Wan, sure. But whenever somebody else's units got bogged down, who did they call to bail them out?
It's true.
It was always Anakin and the 501st who went and dug everyone out of all of the holes that they dug. Jedi are bad generals, by the way. Just going to put that out there. If you're designing your galactic army and you've got a bunch of guys wearing armor using laser guns who fight in big, long battle lines with tanks, maybe don't use the super-powered flippy people as their generals. But, the only one who did understand how to do those battle tactics well, not only one, but one of the guys who knew it best, Anakin Skywalker. Yeah. He was awesome. I mean, when the Chancellor gets captured, they call Anakin and Obi-Wan in, right? Everybody, all the Jedi and the entire council are there on Coruscant, and they call Anakin and Obi-Wan in from the other side of the galaxy because they need them to be able to solve this problem. That's how much better they are than everybody else.
It's very true. Anakin is a very talented Jedi. He was number 4 on my list. I had him. He wasn't my number 3, but he was my number 4. But the reason I kind of put him a little bit lower is because my perception of Anakin is very much that he's a Jedi of war. He's a war Jedi.
Sure.
I don't think that he has that same kind of mentality that some of the other Jedi had, but pre-war.
Well, that's why he ended up on 3rd in my list, is because of that.
And I think, obviously there's some aggression behind him. Who would have thought
Darth the guy Vader who turns into Darth Vader had some troubles in his life?
But that's why I kind of dropped him down. But in terms of, like, what a Jedi can achieve,
and he never
there's
made
no
Master.
one better.
He never made Master, so it's like, I can't really.
But in terms of what a Jedi can achieve, there's nobody better than Anakin.
Yeah.
Like, bar none.
At least except for, like, raw Force ability.
In my opinion, bar one, which is my next draft pick, which is his son, Luke Skywalker. That is my number 3. Luke is my number 3. Luke, in Return of the Jedi, is right on the path. He is what a Jedi needs to be. What a Jedi is. It is hope for the galaxy.
Yeah, he is.
He's this rising force. He goes and he faces down basically 2 god-tier opponents by himself. And he has confidence in his father. He has confidence in good. He has confidence that the galaxy will have the chance to heal. And that mentality is what guided him into being my pick right here. And before you say anything,
I'm gonna get to it.
Before you get to start throwing muck at my pick, I know the sequel trilogy tarnished Luke Skywalker a little bit, but I still think, regardless of all of that, Luke still is a wonderful Jedi. He's really amazing with the Force. He was talented. He fought the path, and he did what he needed to do, and he even revived the Jedi Order before they killed it. And again, for the second.
Before he killed it.
Yeah, but, well, kind of him, but yeah. What are you doing? Anyways, yeah, but Luke, Legends Luke especially, phenomenal character. Everything about him. I really love Luke, and I have to give Luke that extra respect because he was my first Jedi. Luke, we watched those movies when we were kids. Luke means a lot to me because of what he represents. And so I have a lot of love for Luke, and I always will have a lot of love for Luke, and I do not recognize the Luke afterwards.
Right, yeah. So this is why he's on my list. Absolutely is. But he's all the way down at number 8. And the reason he's all the way down at number 8 is entirely because of what happens to Luke after. Yeah. Right? If we stop Luke's story at Return of the Jedi, and it doesn't progress past that point, he is totally the epitome of what Jedi are. Yeah. That's how the movies were written. Of course he is. Like, he's the guy who goes through the hero's journey and becomes the ultimate Jedi, the source of hope and light in the galaxy. Yeah. And even if we take it a little bit past that point, if we go into Battlefront 2 Luke, he's still that beacon of hope and light. He's like, why didn't you go for me? Why did you help me? Because you asked. Yeah, because he'll help his enemies as well, because if they don't fight him and they're willing to change, he loves to see that happen. He wants evil to become good. He wants good to triumph by just overshadowing evil. And it's great. Love him. Perfect. Then you go into the next 3 movies. And in the sequel trilogy, Luke does not perform well. I mean, obviously, in Force Awakens, he doesn't do anything. But that's
he's not in the movie.
Sort of irrelevant.
Yeah.
You can't judge any performance on that one because it was designed to be like, we're setting him up for the next one. But then he shows up in Last Jedi, and his portrayal specifically in Last Jedi is probably the biggest weakness in that movie. That's one of the reasons it's so divided between the fans who hate that movie and the fans who like it. The fans who like it typically weren't really big Luke Skywalker fans. The guys who were really hate that movie. Yeah. And that's because of Luke's frankly terrible portrayal in that movie. He's taking the reclusive hermit role like Obi-Wan. Kinda. Yeah, Obi-Wan took the reclusive hermit role to protect Luke and to protect the next generation, and hopefully the Jedi will return and bring peace and life back to the galaxy. Luke takes that, purposefully stopping the Jedi from ever being created again and bringing light and hope back into the galaxy. It's not comparable.
Because he was sad.
Yeah, it's not comparable.
Yeah.
And really, they needed to have some kind of explanation for how that's even possible. Now, Luke does merge with the Force better than anyone, other than arguably Yoda. But then he doesn't do really anything with that. He's not he's not still an active participant in battles. He still has to rely on Rey to be able to solve the issues and just provide emotional support. It's just Luke's story. Anything after Battlefront 2 in the timeline, like even in The Mandalorian, he's like, oh, you have to choose between this weapon and the armor your dad gave you, and it's like that's so antithesis to how Luke is. You know, he's the Jedi who brought emotion back to the Jedi Order. He's like, we can't separate ourselves from the galaxy we're protecting. You know, Legends Luke specifically. Legends Luke is like, look, everyone's gonna have family, everyone's gonna have friends, everyone's gonna have a connection to this galaxy, and we need to have that. It's good for us. You know, it's good for us to know why we're doing what we do and to be able to temper ourselves against those emotional constraints. Love that, Luke. Great. Deserves a spot on the list. But the other version is just, I can't give him a number 3.
Sorry, we've gone on a tangent. We've talked a lot about Luke Skywalker, but to that I say, wah, I pick Luke.
No, it's still good. It's still good. I'm not going to say bad.
Yeah.
I'm just giving my explanation for why the dude's at 8 on my list.
Sounds good. I fully agree.
I do agree. We spent a lot of time there, so I'll move on to my number 4. My number 4 is going to be Ahsoka.
Yep. There it is.
I love Ahsoka. She's like...
There goes my next pick.
Yeah, because she's awesome. And specifically Jedi Ahsoka. You know, there's a lot of time where she says, oh, I'm not a Jedi anymore.
You're a Jedi.
Kind of. Yeah, you behave like a Jedi. If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it's probably a duck.
If it maintains the teaching, if it travels around with one of the oldest instructors to ever teach Jedi younglings ever in the history of ever.
If it was able to, you know, recreate the purity of a kyber crystal to the point where it turns white, you know, that's probably a Jedi.
The most light force thing you can possibly do.
Yeah, if you're literally combined your soul with the embodiment of light itself from the Celestials.
My big thing that like kind of indicates is like, oh, Ahsoka doesn't call herself a Jedi, but if we're calling Sabine a Jedi, how can you dare not
I disagree with that one. Look,
Jedi?
Sabine's like my 5th favorite character in all of Star Wars, and I don't call her Jedi.
She can be called a Jedi. My point is though that like if we're saying Ahsoka's not a Jedi, but then we're calling Sabine a Jedi, in what world does that make any sense? Because Ahsoka would have to then be a Jedi to induct a Jedi.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally. That's a whole.
It's like,
thing.
But it's just teaching the ideology. It's like, yeah, but then she also pretty much still believes the things that she taught Sabine. So if Sabine's believing it, Ahsoka's believing it.
Yeah. But that's beside the point. It's not why I picked her. I go with Ahsoka because not only was she a member of the Power 3 that actually got everything done during the Clone Wars, she also managed to stay doing that even after she leaves the Jedi Order in what can only be called the most ridiculous of show trials. And she's still so attached to her role as protector and generator of light in the galaxy that she ends up going with the Mandalorians to take down Darth Maul, even as not a technical Jedi anymore. And that's even skipping over the Mortis thing.
I was going to say, the reason she was on my list is because when you're hand-selected by the embodiment of the light side of the Force to be a champion for
the scion of the light side of the Force,
you're pretty good.
You belong on the list.
You're pretty good.
So I gave her my number 4.
Yep, makes sense. She was on my list. She would have been my next pick because you already had taken Anakin and now you took Ahsoka. So now I'm dropped down. My next pick is Kit Fisto.
Okay.
Kit Fisto. I love me the Nautolan. The design of the Nautolan to me is also one of the best alien species in all of Star Wars. Maybe only behind the Rodians. I really love the way the Rodians are. But Kit Fisto as a Jedi, he also has that kind of same mentality as Plo Koon. You want him in the room. Why? He's the smiling Jedi. He brings hope. He brings joy. He brings a level of sincerity and fun to the any environment that he's in. And to me, once again, that's a very important thing for a Jedi to be. He's the happy side of the path, but he is still very much aligned with the path. He's still
disciplined, serious too. Yeah.
I have to give him props for being one of the best duelists in the Jedi Council. And in the Jedi Order as a whole.
Which is surprising because he uses Form 1.
Yeah, he uses Form 1, which is like the very simple, like he's basically...
That's baby mode.
It's the Bruce Lee thing where it's like, I don't fear the man who knows 1,000 punches. I fear the man who knows the one punch, does the one punch 1,000 times. That's the one thing, you know. So... Anyways,
yeah, it's true. No,
that's why I picked Kit Fisto. I love Kit Fisto. He's a wonderful Jedi. He's on my list. He's my number 4 pick.
That's a good pick. I hadn't thought of him. Moving on to my number 5 pick. We talked a little bit earlier about the dogma of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And how Qui-Gon could have saved them from that. and that the Jedi blinded themselves by listening to their constant arrogance and dogma that they knew better and they should detach themselves from the galaxy. And that's how they got into the Clone Wars, and that's how Order 66 happened. And I'm going to be a little bit contrarian because my number 5 pick is actually the guy who I can argue is most responsible for that.
You're going to pick Mace?
Mace Windu.
yeah.
He is probably the most responsible party for Order 66. He gets Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, in, who he's seeing some dark side tendencies in, and he says, you know what I should do to deal with that? We think that Chancellor Palpatine, your lifelong friend, is actually the Sith Lord that's been manipulating the galaxy, so he must be a master of persuasion and lying. We're going to go ahead and put you right next to him for the next few months, and just would you just sit there, please? Oh, and also, we don't respect you. We're not giving you the right of master, and you have to prove to me that you're not a giant pile of bantha fodder. It's like, Mace, dude, chill like a little bit. Don't put Anakin in that situation, maybe. It's his fault. But on the other side, he's also the most powerful duelist the Jedi ever produced.
Yeah, it's true.
We're talking about Kit Fisto's a very powerful duelist. Sure. Mace Windu is so powerful of a duelist that he actually did win against Sidious. And he won not handily, but, well, actually, definitely not handily.
Yeah.
But pretty handily, you know what I mean? Like, he took him down, and he would have won that fight. If it wasn't for Anakin's interference, Mace Windu would have killed Lord Sidious right then and there.
He would have.
And it wouldn't have been that bad for him, realistically. And that would have played out pretty much any way that you put it. Like, oh, you could say that he wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Anakin, because they didn't know that he was the Sith Lord or anything like that. Yeah, but any way you throw Sidious and Mace Windu into a fight, if it turns at all one-on-one, Mace has taken him. He's the most powerful duelist the Jedi Order ever produced, arguably. I mean, you could include some Old Republic people and maybe change it, but not in the prime timeline.
Okay.
I got to give him the spot.
Number 5 pick. Okay. My number 5 pick, we've now dropped into my last thing that I had. This pick, for me, I think he's a wonderful Jedi. I think that he embodies very well of what the Jedi Order can be after the terrible incident of Order 66. My final pick is Cal Kestis.
Ooh, that's a good
Cal
pick.
Kestis. I especially love his arc throughout the Fallen Order game. I love the way he turns from Padawan into Knight in that game, but I also really love how he maintains that through Jedi Survivor. Yes, there's a little bit of moments where he uses the dark side, but in the end,
pretty much any Jedi who made it through Order 66.
I mean, pretty much any Jedi except Obi-Wan.
And Yoda.
Yeah. But he's a very good Jedi. Like, what does he do? His whole life he spends just like, first he hides, but then he goes all out and he's just like, I'm gonna fight the Empire in every single way imaginable. I'm just gonna help as many people as possible. What's the point of hiding anymore? And then he gets the entire Empire on his back because they know who he is. They're hunting him down. The Inquisitors are chasing him the entire time. And he's just like, nah, I'm going to keep going anyways. Like, yeah, I'm just going to fight you head on. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of hiding. It's time to just brawl.
I feel like I could take on the whole Empire myself.
Yeah, and he could, because he does. And yeah, he beats so many Inquisitors, and he survives Vader. I mean, that's a feat of itself. I mean, it's not... And during the Disney Star Wars run, it's not as impressive of a feat anymore. It used to be like, oh my god, you survived Vader.
Yeah, but the Jedi Survivor version of Vader is pretty in line with Legends Vader as far as his, like, absolute ruthlessness.
Sure. Yeah, no, he's still pretty ruthless. What I'm saying, though, is that, like, Ezra and Kanan can, like, just run away. And
Sure.
It's not
quite as impressive as it used to be.
It's not as impressive.
But I would argue that the Jedi Order game, I don't know what to call that series, like Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, so I just call them the Jedi games.
Yeah,
the Jedi games, Vader is pretty much in line with his old self in those games. He's the scary Vader.
He's pretty scary. Yeah.
And you know what? That's a great pick, and I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Because you know what? The other thing about Cal Kestis, that is the most naturally talented Jedi that ever existed.
Oh, seriously? Yeah.
If he had been born at any other time.
Yeah, his echo sense is so... Wow.
Yeah, and he's got freezing ability, and he's got all... Basically, he has all of the rare Force talents except for, like, healing.
Yeah, the Force healing is the only one he doesn't have. Of course, out of all of the characters who have Force healing, the only ones that we've seen do it are Grogu and Rey, right? Like, that's...
Sure. Because it was a, relatively late addition to canon.
Yeah.
It's shown up in
Poor Qui-Gon. If only Obi-Wan had that ability.
but it's shown up in, like, previous Legends stuff. outside of canon, but the first few times it's shown up in canon is because
like primary.
It's in the Disney era
media. Yeah,
but I'm seriously, the Cowcast is a good pick. I didn't think of that one. That's a really good choice. My last one would have been Ezra, but
yeah, you ended up getting a majority of what you wanted.
I got a lot of what I wanted.
Yeah,
so
okay.
We didn't get down my
Well,
list.
I mean that's the top 5. We've picked our draft picks.
So,
it's run long. We did pretty long to explain, mostly because we got hung up on Luke and...
Look, I think it was worth talking about it.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
All right, so we'll just summarize because it has been a little while.
Okay.
Let's go. The summarize of picks: Yoda, Qui-Gon, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Mace versus Obi-Wan,
Plo, Luke, Kit Fisto, Cal Kestis. Yeah. Okay.
Who do you think is the top 5?
Yep.
Who do you think is going to be the best out of those 2 lineups? Tell us in the comments below. Tell us who your top 5 would have been. You can even pick stuff that we already picked because you didn't get a chance to enter the draft at the same time as we did.
It's true.
So, yeah, come up with your lists. Who's your fantasy Jedi team?
Yeah.
And which one of us wins? Yep. I mean, I know it's me, but tell me why it's me.
You have the more powerful, but these are the Jedi that I would want to be with.
Your barbecue team?
I have the barbecue Jedi team, and I honestly think that's better than having
only
powerful
one
Jedi.
of the Jedi on this list has been a barbecue. Actually, technically, 2 of my Jedi have been barbecues.
Yeah. Burned. Yeah, you're right.
Well, anyway, thanks very much for watching this relatively long episode of Silvery Barbs. No idea how the length on the other ones is going to show up. No idea what we're going to do for the other episodes of Silvery Barbs. If you have an idea for competition between Sam and I that you would like to see us do, be it trivia or more fantasy
We're doing
teams.
Trivia. I've got some stuff.
If you got more ideas for fantasy teams that we could put together, stuff like that, just put it in the comments. Tell us anything you want to tell us. The more engagement we get, the better we do with the algorithm. So, drive that engagement and give us more shots at becoming proper YouTubers.
Okay.
Thank you very much for watching.